Hi there. Well, in this video, I'm going to do a quick little tour of the Sandbox environment so that you're familiar with what things are and what they're called so you can navigate easier. To get to the Sandbox, I always recommend first thing you do is go to Blackboard and find the little Sandbox link on the left-hand side here and click on that, and it's going to give you a link to our class's Sandbox. Now, if you try to log into another class's Sandbox or you try to type this in manually, you will not be able to log in. So it's good to always go through that link there, or as soon as you click on it here, go ahead and make a bookmark. Now, I already just previously logged in, but normally it will bring you a login screen and you log in with your UC credentials. And then when you do log in, this is what you'll see the first time you do. There's not a whole lot in here because we haven't built anything yet. But we'll go on and do that in other videos. So first brings you to the home screen, and eventually you'll see your virtual machines in this view here. You can also click on My Cloud here, and it will give you a different view here. You can see your VApps, which we discussed in class as a collection of virtual machines and their networks, or you can do different VMs individually through here. The catalogs area here is where media is stored. So we have our organizational catalog, and we have VApp templates. These are pre-built virtual machines that you can use to build quickly a completely configured virtual machine. And for our class, we have a CentOS, a Windows 10, and a Windows Server 2012. And then in media, you also have some ISO files. These are disk images of CDs or DVDs that contain the installation media for certain operating systems. In this case, we have some for Windows Server, CentOS, and Windows 10 as well. So you can build it straight from the CD or DVD. Public catalogs, I always recommend you avoid these because other professors or sometimes senior design students may put things in here that are configured differently or older versions. So I usually recommend you stay away from the public catalogs. I keep our organizational catalog pretty up to date, so everything in there is good to go. You won't see the administrative tab. I see that because I am the organizational administrator there. Okay, so from the home page, this is probably where you're going to do most of your work here. You have the option to build a VF from a catalog, from an OVF file, which we won't do in this class, but that allows you to upload a pre-existing virtual machine or build a new VApp from scratch. I always say go with the build a new VApp here, and so it gives you several different options. First thing, you always want to give it a name, and I always suggest put your username in there and some kind of description. I'm just going to do VApp1 for my description. Don't need to change anything here. The runtime lease and storage lease is basically how long it will run before it's automatically stopped. At this point in time, we don't have to worry about that. Then here you can add virtual machines. If you did the VF from the catalog, you'd only have one option here. Here we have the option of building virtual machines from the organizational catalog, the public catalog, so we can select those pre-built machines. So say I wanted to add a Windows 10, I can highlight the system I want to add, and go ahead and click add, and it drops down here. Now I can also build a new virtual machine from scratch, a completely blank virtual machine, and I'm going to do that for my CentOS system. So here I want to change it since it's going to be a Linux system. Select Linux, and then from this drop down list I can scroll down and find the CentOS option here, and I can give it a number of CPUs. So I'm going to go ahead and give my system 2 CPUs and 4 gigs of memory. Just follow the instructions in the lab for different systems. You'll have different requirements. And then click OK. And so I've got 2 virtual machines here. I'm going to click Next. Configure resources here. This is where you're going to want to name each individual virtual machine. I suggest you give them names so that they're easy to recognize for you. If you're in the enterprise systems class, you should have a naming scheme that you're using. Storage policy, there's only one you can use is the VSA10K. If you put in the ISO, you'll run out of space. Then again, now we can name the virtual machine. So again, this will actually be the computer name. So the virtual machine name is the name you'll see in the interface, and the computer name is what the actual computer will be named. Now, if you're building from scratch, you'll have to manually set this. If you're building from a template, it should go through and change that name for you. Then you're going to select a network. UC Public will give you a direct network connection to UC's backbone, which also gives you internet access. So generally that's what you want to check. And then you want to change it to DHCP so that you get an IP address automatically. Now you can also go in here and add a network, and in some of the advanced classes you'll go through that. But for the system admin class, we're just going to use the UC Public network and set it to DHCP. And you can configure the network. This would be if you had added networks. You might have to do some extra configuration here, but we're using the public network. It's pre-configured for us. Summary screen here, and then you click Finish. And it's going to take a moment or two to create the VM, so I'm going to pause for just a moment while it does that. Okay, so if that takes a while to do, you may want to refresh with this little blue refresh button here. It may take 1 or 2 minutes. It may take up to 10 minutes depending on how much work is going on in the system. You got to think there's 400 or 500 other students that may be in here doing things, so at certain times, especially in the evenings, it may be a little slow. So now that the systems are built here, this is what you'll see as a VApp. If you click on Open here, it will bring up the VApp diagram view from the My Cloud tab. You see it changed there. And you'll see there's different virtual machines and the networks that are connected. If you have multiple networks, you'll see those in here. You can switch the virtual machine tabs. This will give you information about the IP address on the virtual machine, if it's powered on. And then you can also go to the networking. Like I said, we're not going to do anything with the networking in the system admin class, but in some of the advanced classes, you'll get into some of that networking things. You can also switch to the VM view here if you wanted to see the VMs individually. Again, most of the time you'll be working out of this view. Now up here, you can add a VM here if you wanted to. So you can add another virtual machine to this. You can add a network, or you can start it. If you click Start here, it's going to start up the entire, it's going to start up both virtual machines for you. And that may take a moment or two, so let's hold on 1 second. All right, once those machines are ready and powered up, you'll see a little green light here, and that means that they're powered on. You can kind of see the screen here. With the Windows machine, it's going to take a couple minutes here for it to configure. So if you are doing from a pre-built template, I always suggest wait 5 minutes because it's going to go reboot and do some configuration on its own to get it all set up. If you right-click on a virtual machine, you can pop out the console, or you can just click on it and pop out the console. That's going to open up another little window here. And it takes a second to connect, and then once it connects, up here on the top, if you click this little button here, it's going to fit the window to the guest so that it's not working too properly, but that's probably because I don't have an operating system here. You can go full screen if you want to. You can set Control-Alt-Delete here, and then you also have start and stop functions for it. Reset, I don't suggest you do that for a reboot because sometimes it will actually reapply configuration settings and change passwords and stuff like that. This is the CentOS system, which I built as a new virtual machine, so there's no operating system on it right now. So it's just booting to nothing. It doesn't find an operating system. The Windows 10 system here does have an operating system because I built it from a pre-built template, and it may still be going through setup here. So we'll give that a moment or two. A couple of things you can do if you right click on here. Again, you have your power up functions. You can insert a CD or DVD from a catalog. So for example, we don't have an operating system on there now, so we can search for our class's operating ISO files. Unfortunately, this gives you all the ISO files for all the classes. And there's a specific brand new one I just put in here, 1708. That's the latest version. So I can click Insert, and we'll say it's busy for a moment. And now you'll see it's got a CD in there. So if I go ahead and I power that off real quick, and power it back on, it's going to boot to that CD since it won't find any other operating system. Another thing you can do in here is you can create a snapshot. So what a snapshot is, it takes a picture of the operating system at that particular moment in time, so that way if you make a mistake or anything like that, you can revert back to that snapshot. So you can create a snapshot. It may take a few minutes to create that snapshot, but that way when you're done with your lab, you can save your progress, so that way if you mess up something in the next lab, you can always go back to the beginning point of the previous lab, or the ending point of the previous lab, and don't have to do everything all over again. Very important to use that because these labs build on each other, and if you screw up your system, you may have to go back and reconfigure things that you've done in the past. And it's taking a snapshot, so it's not letting me get back in there. But that is basically the nuts and bolts of the Sandbox, and where you're going to be doing a lot of your work from in this class.